Welcome back to the lab. I'm Glenn. It's raining and we are ruining this perfectly good Nissan K12 March shopping trolley. We've already significantly ruined it by putting this silly motor in the back with burns lots of dinosaur juice instead of running it on cheap petrol on a 1.4 litre motor or whatever. So what I'm doing here is cutting more things out. Obviously there's a big chunk of our firewall is now missing. Originally it's still there on the other side. We can get away with it because that turbo's in a slightly different place. Our Pulsar Turbo Systems New Zealand turbocharger, GTX 2860R, sits a little bit further forward on this side than what would be ideal for the air intake system. It's just the way things worked out. In hindsight, I probably could have redesigned my manifold to have it back a little bit further and make life a heck of a lot easier. I'm going to leave that alone and chop the car up instead. So that's just things you do. I want to put one of those onto the front of that like that, and then we can avoid having our air intake system, which is a bunch of 3-inch pipes and elbows and all that sort of stuff. And as we've seen in the previous videos, silicon and tube and all that is quite heavy. Silicon in particular, the tube's not so bad, but the silicon beams, they weigh a lot. If you look at that, is it going to fall down? I'm waiting for it to fall down. We're not very far away from being able to make that work, but just not quite. In the past I have beaten it with a large hammer, hence the dents from the inside there, other side, to get a foam pod filter arrangement in there, and they're junk. I wouldn't ever run those ever again, but I'm going to try and get this in here. I think the plan is basically we'll cut down here and we'll cut across there and we'll more or less straight line, a little bit of a convex curve concave from the other side to make enough room to get the filter on and off without massive dramas. And then we'll build a little bit of an air box down there for the filter, which should, in theory, weigh less than the other system that we had. And it should work better because it's a shorter path for the air to get in. Yay! Okay, we absolutely have enough room for our air filter now. And people will be losing their minds because I've cut away structure on the vehicle, and I've cut the mount foot on the roll cage. Oh! Actually, I had someone right back when I first got this car assembled telling me that I'd put the mount feet in the wrong place. There's actually a lot of structure underneath where that mount foot is, and that is why it is where it is. He was all concerned about there's a little dent in the top skin there, and that it should be on a fully flat surface and all that sort of carry on. Well, I was more concerned about the actual structure that's underneath the flimsy tin panel, which is only there to stop the dirt getting into the actual structure. So anyway, we'll do something there. I can assure you it's going to be absolutely beautiful. Heaps of room. Get that air filter on and off easily now, and we can build a little air box around that. The only issue is getting the aesthetics right. Getting the structure and everything's all piece of cake. I'm going to carry that chassis rail through into the sill here, give it some probably more strength than what it had to start with, to be honest. It's not going to be lighter, I seriously doubt that, but it will move weight forward a tiny little bit. That's not what we're about here anyway at the moment. Yes, we'll remove weight from the air box and air intake system, but that's about the structure side of it. Not worried about increasing weight there. Stage 1 complete. So we've tied this piece to, it's all quite hot, it's just welded this other piece that's on the inside there rather than just leaving that floating around. And I will, when we drop the engine and everything later on and the turbo's out of the way, weld all the way along that seam to join this to the panel underneath to the roll cage foot plate, which will be extended and everything shortly. People on the internet are already screaming about load paths and force vectors and excuse me a second, as I was saying before, we were rudely interrupted by the air compressor, which seems to be working quite well now. They're already screaming about load paths and force vectors and all that sort of carry on, and having an angle like this is going to be no good for load and blah 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 blah. Now typically if you post a picture like that on the internet, comments will go nuts, because so many people out there assume that they are way smarter than the guy that's working on the car and they can tell him what he's doing is wrong. But we're all smarter than that, and we all know that Glenn's going to do something else and he hasn't finished yet. So that's why there's holes in that, right? If you have holes in there, you're going to get fire and things from in the engine bay into the cabin. So this is obviously not the external piece just yet. I'm thirsty, I'm going to get a drink, and then we're going to do some more. More stronger. Now, it's not about transferring from here to here, because that's like tin foil. And actually that's another one of those skins where they've, see that line there? It's thicker there than it is there. So that's really interesting. I've not actually seen that to that extent on a car before, but there you go. There's probably dozens of other models that they do that on, but I've just never noticed it. So it's all about transferring from here and here into here and into here and into there. We haven't got to that bit yet, but we'll get there. I've left all these, I've put lightning holes, stiffening holes, they're also called, because the rib around the outside edge stiffens the entire area around it, just to give this all a bit more stiffness, funnily enough, and also so we can get rust inhibiting paint and all that sort of carry on there. Don't worry about this. There's a panel that's going to there and going that way and doing other things, and then I'm getting the hole saw out and we're attacking this pillar and taking the seatbelt bracket out of it. Look at this huge big piece of metal. Why didn't I know why I didn't take it out. And there's another one there. There's a tab that doesn't have to be there. Things can go away in that panel and make the, they probably actually take out nearly as much weight as what we're putting back in with all these extra bits. Cool. It is well past lunchtime. I'm doing that and then coming back. Well, it all shows up on your screen in 5-10 minutes, but I can assure you that's quite a lot of work involved in doing that. So I'm pretty happy with the way that's transferring all our loads into our sill there, which is, I mean, this is the most structural part of the car that we've got to tag onto. Everything else is basically tin foil. So next up obviously is a gaping hole between the transmission tunnel and the B-pillar slash sill slash rear chassis rail arrangement. I'm not going to do the same as this. I'm actually going to try and do something a little bit smarter than that. So it might involve actually incorporating the engine cover and that side of the firewall all in one big panel, just to give more access to things easier. But we'll see. It is actually 5 o'clock. It is time to knock off really, but I'm just going to see if I can smash out something quickly before I go inside. And then the phone rang. I was like, oh, do I answer it or do I? And I answered it. So it's now 6 o'clock and I've got that far. The fuel air filter fits in behind here underneath this. So what I'm going to do is tag that into there like that, just to give this a little bit more support. But this is going to need beefing up, something chronic. You can't have a flimsy little panel like that supporting your transmission tunnel, because with my big fat bum sitting in this, putting weight on here, this whole thing's just going to be boing boing boing. The side of the car will be no support there, so we can't have that. That needs beefing up big time. That's going to be tomorrow and maybe the next day at the rate we're going. The other thing I keep looking at is these seat rails. Yeah, I know you can do it with tubes, you can do it all sorts. There's many different ways to do it. The seat height for me is wherever the seat is. Oh, it's inside, can't show you. It's quite high. So I've got quite tall brackets, and the seat's quite a long way up on those brackets, which gives it room to move around like this. To minimize that, we need to lift these points up. So those two are a piece of cake. That one's easy enough. This one is a little bit of a problem. So I'm trying to dream up a way of doing that nicely. I mean, ultimately you can actually just cut this bar off, shift the height, sort it all out, put it all back in, send your logbook and photos, whatever, off to Motorsport New Zealand. Well, they may not even care if it's put back basically at the same place by the guy who built the cage. It possibly isn't even an issue. Probably is technically on paper, but realistically not really a problem. So I didn't weigh all the stuff that we took out of the car, because we had possibly put back in equal or more with what I've done there. I'm thinking of ways to beef this up a lot more, but I'll tackle it tomorrow. Cheers for watching. Alright, see you, bye.